What's up, everybody? Welcome to the Pick Six Podcast, CBS NFL podcast, here with Will Brinson and John Breech. Remember to like, comment, and subscribe on the YouTube page, rate and review on Apple and Spotify. For those who missed the last episode, we looked at some player props and the Bills and the Packers postseason odds with Brady Quinn. And today we're going to take a look at some top storylines around minicamp and figure out how to gamble on them. To do so, we're going to play a Pick Six version of The Price is Right, and I'm going to call it The Line is Right. But fellas, before we get into that, obviously,
the price is wrong, Breech.
The price is wrong.
That's really the only reason I came up with the idea for the Price is Right idea was just so I could say that. That's all I did. I'm sorry.
Okay, well, we appreciate your contribution because that was lovely. And I do think this game is actually going to be very fun. But again, guys, biggest news, Dalvin Cook was finally released. Brinson, we discussed this on Tuesday with Brady Quinn about why this hasn't happened yet. It looks like it was mostly due to money, $10.4 million in base salary this season, $11.9 million in 2024, and $12.9 in 2025. The Vikings would save $9 million in cap space with this transaction. What are your initial thoughts, Brinson?
I'm kind of surprised well, we should note he will be released. He's not technically released yet because the Vikings are actually in the I believe this is called the denial phase of the proceedings when they have their general manager, what do we call him? KWB or KGB? I always forget the initials I used to
KGB, I think is like
KGB. Yeah. No, yeah, it's the Russian.
No, that's like the Russian.
He's big into incremental wins. He said that this offseason. And what he means is when they talk about this, and when any GM talks about this, what they mean is they want to try and acquire small, like a fifth round pick is worth a lot to the guys who are big into analytics. And as such, I think you're going to see what the Vikings are doing is throwing this out there. Hey, we're cutting him. This is it. If you want him, come and get him. 6th round pick, 7th round pick, fifth round pick would be lovely. We don't expect that. They want to get anything they possibly can in a trade for Dalvin Cook. They've tried this already by floating the report that he was going to be released. They wanted to wait. They're just trying to get something. They're trying to get anything in return because they'd rather have that than the cap space relief. And eventually, it's maybe they wanted him to take a pay cut. Neither of those things is happening, and so Dalvin, was probably going to get to pick his spot because we assume that no one will trade for him.
Yeah, I mean, well, the key there is that they've literally spent the past 3 months trying to trade him, and no one is bitten. So it's highly unlikely that we see him get dealt before 4 p.m. Friday when the cut would become official. But teams do this all the time. We saw the Cardinals do this with DeAndre Hopkins. They even said they floated the release out the Friday before Memorial Day. And so they had 4 days.
Knowing that Friday and Monday were off days for the NFL. So they're like, we're cutting him. And
you guys have till Tuesday at 4 p.m. to call us to get a trade done. And again, they're crickets. No one was calling them. But sometimes when the money's not so big, this strategy works. Riley Patterson, Jacksonville's kicker. Jacksonville went out and signed McManus. Then Jacksonville floated that they were going to be cutting Riley Patterson. Everyone reported that Riley Patterson was cut. Boom. The Lions call up and say, you know what? We'll take Riley Patterson since he's not released yet. And so we ended up seeing a cat trade between the Lions and the Jaguars. So this does sometimes work, usually not with players who are making the kind of money that Dalvin Cook is making. So it does seem like Minnesota, you have, like Brinson said, an analytical-minded GM who's thinking, we are not paying running back $9 million. Certainly not when we're going to save this $9 million. We have Alexander Madison. We're comfortable with our backfield. Bye, Dalvin. You had a great career here. We're moving on.
Speaking of moving on, our friends at Sportsline have odds set of where Dalvin Cook will be playing in week 1 of this season. You got the Bills and the Dolphins at the top, plus 300. And then you got the Jets, Cowboys, Broncos, all the way down to the Chargers. One, I guess in general, Breech, where do you think he's going to go? And then in looking at these odds, what's kind of a fun bet?
Well, I think the Dolphins are a favorite here, obviously, because that's the team that has been mostly associated with him all offseason. There was some chatter that they might get a trade done. The Dolphins, it seems like Mike McDaniel is just collecting running backs. I mean, they have Jeff Wilson. They have Raheem Mostert. They have plenty of running backs, but apparently McDaniel can't have enough because...
Did you hear Mike McDaniel's press conference today?
What did he say?
It was so good. He goes, Is it March 3rd, 1983? And it was like, everybody's like, huh? And he's like, somebody goes, is that your birthday? He goes, yeah, that's my birthday. And last I checked, yesterday wasn't March 3rd, 1983. I'm not going to comment about Dalvin Cook because I wasn't born yesterday. He didn't even say, he like made the joke without saying I wasn't born yesterday. It was really good. It was clever. Like it didn't get a lot of laughs, sadly enough, in the press room. But essentially he was like, they were like, hey, would you be interested in Dalvin Cook? And you still can't comment about Dalvin Cook until he is actually released. So we don't really, and not that they're going to be like, oh, we'd love to have, I mean, maybe they say we'd love to have him, we're interested, whatever it is. Dolphins make a ton of sense. As Breech pointed out, though, they've been collecting running backs, and Dalvin Cook in that zone scheme, that one cut running style, man. I mean, he could be explosive in Miami. I believe that Dalvin is also a Miami resident or a Miami native. He was born
in Miami.
Yeah, went to high school in Miami. Didn't he go to St. Thomas Aquinas? Is it St. Thomas Aquinas? Is that right? I think so.
With the Miami Central.
Oh, excuse me, Mr. Miami High School athletes.
Yeah. My guys at Miami Central right now.
He did go to Miami Central. You're right. Yeah.
Anything.
You know what would have been smart is reading it on the page in front of me, since they listed that as Pro Football Reference site. I mean, he went to Florida State. They spent his entire formative, was in Florida until basically he was 21 years old when he was drafted by the Vikings in the second round, 41st overall. Has been there since the 2017 season. If he has his druthers, I would guess that Miami is his choice. Unless sometimes everybody, not just athletes, but athletes in particular, especially if you are wealthier, maybe you don't want to go back home. Sometimes that happens. Sometimes I don't like to go back home, honestly, and I'm not wealthy. But the Cowboys can make sense. They have Tony Pollard under contract, of course, on the franchise tag. He signed that. He's there. He's making good progress, but they may feel like they need more depth. Although I would guess that the Cowboys Breech would probably be more likely to sign Zeke Elliott on a cheap deal than Dalvin Cook. And the Bills are up there, of course, because the Bills are always on the list for running backs, and because Dalvin Cook's brother, James Cook, plays for Buffalo. So what would you rather do, Breech? Go home or go live with your brother?
That's a good question. It depends how much I like my brother.
Well, I mean, you don't have to say it on the podcast.
Yeah, I don't want to throw anyone under the bus here, but fun fact.
I kind of feel like you have to say it now, because now it sounds like you don't like your brother.
Well, I
can't
answer the question. My brother's turning 40 this year. I don't need him. I don't need to be on his bad side.
Okay.
But I will say the Cowboys are interesting because, as Brinson said, it seems like Zeke Elliott would make more sense just because he already knows the offense. He knows what he's doing.
They love Zeke too.
But does Zeke want to go in there and be second fiddle to Tony Pollard when he's been first fiddle for so long? But if you're the Cowboys, you have to at least be thinking about, hey, look, we have this guy who got a serious injury last year, has never had more than 200 carries in a season, and we're going to be asking him to be our full-time running back. So I do think the Cowboys need to seriously consider whether it's Dalvin Cook or Zeke. So, yeah, I think the Dolphins, Cowboys, Bills all make some sense. The Broncos we see up there, they have big odds because right now they're two top backs, Javonte Williams coming off the ACL, MCL tear. And, right now he looks good, but we don't know what it's going to look like when they're going full speed in training camp, the preseason, how he's going to hold up. So I think you at least need to look at depth if you're Denver. They signed Samaje Perine, but again, Perine was not the every down back in Cincinnati. He hasn't had more than 100 carries in a season over the past 5 years. So he's not a guy you're going to be asking to carry a full load. So I think Dalvin Cook would absolutely make sense in Denver. And you know what? Bengals, look, we've heard all this chatter about Joe Mixon. I think that would depend on how much money Dalvin Cook wants, because if he wants $9 million, $10 million a year, the Bengals are going to say, yeah, well, we'll pay Joe Mixon that money because he already knows our offense. But if Dalvin Cook says, hey, I'll sign for $4 million and a lot of incentives, then maybe the Bengals think about it. So I think a lot of that will come down to how much money Dalvin Cook is willing to sign for. And Katie, you asked for one kind of long shot here. I like the Rams at 10-1. They have Cam Akers. Ooh. I think that he would be very interesting to see Dalvin Cook in Sean McVay's offense. And I don't think that McVay is 100% sold on Cam Akers as his number one guy, but that's who it is right now.
What makes you say that? Was it when they tried to trade him like the entire last season, and then finally everybody got hurt and they just had to play him? Is that what
forced to play him? And he did well though, and he kind of got the last laugh because he's like, so, yeah, why don't you guys play me the whole year? But it does feel like that McVay and Akers aren't always on the same page, and that McVay's probably looking around just to see, hey, is there anyone else out there? And I think Dalvin Cook will make some sense there.
I like that LA call a lot. I think and we should know too, like these are, I don't know, these are Sportsline's odds. Like the guys at Sportsline came up with them, and you can't, although shout out North Carolina, legalized betting now will come in 2024. Very excited for that. But you can't bet on these are not like, you can't go to Sportsline and bet, although you should go to Sportsline and sign up. Just $1 for your first month, and you get expert picks from people like Kelly Mox give you expert picks. Over on sportsline.com every day, right? Don't you write up a pick every day?
Every day that I make a pick on Sportsline, yes. So sometimes I'm a host, sometimes I'm an analyst. It depends. But yeah, if you sign up now with the promo code Trophy, you get the first month for just $1.
Steal. The Eagles are on there. They spend a lot. We haven't seen them necessarily invest in the running back position, although they obviously went out and got Rashad Penny and then traded for DeAndre Swift. So I don't know. That's a lot of mouths to feed. And if you added Dalvin Cook in there, the Patriots are always on a list that involves a big name veteran. Although I think they really like Ramondre. Like Dalvin Cook's probably not going to go somewhere that he has to be like the backup. Like he's not going to go somewhere where he's the backup, the straight up backup. You know what I mean? And like, I don't think the Ravens are going to pay him a bunch of money considering, they just went out and got Odell Beckham. They have, they have J.K. Dobbins, who they really like. He's, as JLC pointed out this week, he's in a contract year. The teams at the top are a pretty good list. The Rams, definitely a good sleeper. The Chargers would be a little interesting too, right? Given all the drama with Austin Eckler. But I would think Dolphins or Bills make the most sense because one, his hometown team, that scheme really fits the way that he plays, the way that he runs, that one cut. When he gets that one cut and then the outside, he is lethal on home run hits. They've struggled to keep guys healthy, although, typically Shanahan, McDaniel style offenses and front office don't want to invest in running backs that heavily. And then again, like his brother's playing with the Bills. So if he's willing to take less money to go to Buffalo, although the other thing about the brother stuff, like it would be a little weird. So my brother works at, like, let's say he works at Share File, right? Or like a better example, like I work at CBS. CBS hires my brother Charlie to like do the same job, but like he's like Dalvin Cook is a more established veteran than James Cook. Like is Dalvin going to come in and take his brother's job, like steal carries from his brother? That would be kind of weird, right? You'd be taking bread off the table, even though you get to play with him.
Yeah, James might not want him.
Yeah, James might not want him, but I feel like Dalvin wants a job. So if that's what's offered to him, what is he going to say?
Oh my God. What if he's like, look, I don't even want to play with my brother. I hate my brother. Like John, like I'm like Breech, man. I hate my brother, but I want that cash and I want those carries.
Has Dalvin said anything publicly? Like, obviously, I know that DeAndre Hopkins did that whole thing about the things that he's looking for. Dalvin, I don't believe, has said anything about this situation, about the Vikings or where he's going. What's interesting, and Breech, I did actually check these numbers. This was in our chat, is some of those teams at the top, we have seen some running backs rushing yards season totals kind of shift with this Dalvin Cook news. So looking at Miami, Jeff Wilson's rush yards prop yesterday is 600.5. Now it's 550.5. You got Raheem Mostert also yesterday 575.5. Today 525.5. What do you guys make of this?
Sorry, go ahead, Breech.
It just seems like the odds makers feel pretty confident that Dalvin Cook might end up in Miami because that's the only reason you would lower those numbers substantially. And you look at what each of those guys did last season in Miami. I think Mostert rushed for almost 900 yards. Then obviously Jeff Wilson got traded there, so we don't know what he would do in a full season, but in a half season, he hit nearly 400. You're giving me Mostert and Wilson both at those numbers. I would hammer the over because you don't even know if Dalvin Cook's going to end up in Miami. And if he doesn't, I feel like the overs hit for both guys easy. And then if Dalvin Cook does end up in Miami, it's not like Mike McDaniel has an offense where he's got a guy playing every single down in every single quarter. Dalvin Cook will come off the field. Most certain Wilson will still play. So yeah, at those numbers, I love both the overs there.
What would you set and I didn't talk about this beforehand, but it just occurred to me, if you had to blindly set Dalvin Cook's over under rush yards for this year, not knowing where he's going to play
in Miami. Not knowing.
Yeah.
That's hard because you don't know what kind of quarterback or what kind of scheme he's going to be in.
Yeah. I mean, this is just what's wild is that the books are like, to Breech's point, are just, the heavy adjustment, sort of panic adjustment on these props. I mean, I'd love to see, I don't even know that you can, I guess that this is based on a simulation where they say, okay, this is what we think. I mean, it's like Stephen O runs a simulation for Sportsline and we come away with, all right, this is what it would do to Moser. This is what it would do to Wilson if Cook was on the Dolphins. But to drop all three of those guys, like a guy on the Broncos and two guys on the Dolphins is kind of crazy. I would probably say 750 for Dalvin, just because I think wherever he goes, he's probably not going to be the feature back. You see 885 was his number before. I mean, he could easily hit that if he's healthy and he lands on a great situation. But I don't think that we're going to see a massive number in terms of, shout out Dom in the chat had the same number. Good job. Or bad job, depending on what it is. I think I just think that we'll see. He's just not going to go somewhere where he's the guy. I mean, there's just not many.
Well, Miami, no way. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, they're just going to mix it up. Worth noting that Mike Florio, who is a Vikings fan, actually blasted the Vikings. Vikings sent strange message by dumping Dalvin Cook. Yes, they need the cash and cap space to sign Justin Jefferson, but it would have been easy to exercise the right to restructure Cook's contract and push cap dollars to future years as the cap keeps going up and up. On the one hand, there's a certain amount of self-awareness that comes to recognizing that having Cook on the team will deliver a Super Bowl win this year. On the other hand, why wave a white flag preemptively? If you're Minnesota, all due respect to Alexander Mattison, I think he's a good running back. I don't think he's Dalvin Cook. Is this should they have kept Dalvin Cook? You just restructure his deal and bring him back for another year and let him play it out. And maybe he wasn't willing to just play on a 1-year deal. It's entirely possible too. It's between this and, you Danielle Hunter being rumored to be on the trade block, maybe the Dolphins, maybe the Vikings 3-1 was a good number after all to win that division.
Yeah, and the one thing about Dalvin Cook, though, is that he's gotten to the Pro Bowl in 4 straight years. We're Brinson's pinning his over-under at 750, and this is a guy who has rushed for at least 1,100 yards in 4 straight seasons. So that tells you that it feels like the Vikings were just ready to move on, or that if they tried to renegotiate with Dalvin Cook, that he said, yeah, look at my numbers. There's no way I'm taking a pay cut. Cut me. I'll go find somewhere. I'll find some money somewhere else. So it is interesting. And the fact that there's not a spot for him to get, be the number one guy and get 250 carries, which is basically what he's hit in each of the past 4 seasons, if not higher. That makes it even more interesting, because I think that's going to be a big part of his decision is where can I get the most playing time? I realize I'm not going to be an every down guy, but where do I get the most playing time? Where do I get the most money? And so I think those are the 2 factors he's going to consider the most.
Yeah. I would say too, that just finally, this is probably his last, given his age, and he's 20, he'll turn 28 in August, right before the season starts. If any sort of deal he gets here is probably his last big-ish contract. He'll probably, 3 more years, maybe, for Dalvin Cook. Running back shelf life, hard to figure out, and won't be getting him, massive contracts moving forward, I wouldn't guess.
Does this affect the Brinson model for the Vikings this year? Their win total set to 8.5 and the over juiced to -125. No Dalvin Cook, possibly no Hunter. Is that who else is on the block?
Danielle Hunter's been traded on the trade block, rumored to be shopping him.
Already traded Zadarius Smith.
Zadarius Smith. 11-0 1 score games last year. No, the Brinson model unchanged. We'd sort of factored this in. The computer was aware that Dalvin Cook might not be on the team. Had them going 8 and 9 anyway. Although I had them beating San Francisco at home, so the algorithm may may want to
Ooh.
reconsider that. And 7-10 is entirely possible for the Vikings this year.
And I do want to throw one more thing out because mentioned prominently in the chat is that the Dolphins did draft a running back this year. So they literally have 3 running backs right now that, they're probably going to be planning on using. You throw Dalvin Cook in there, that's 4 running backs. It's not going to be easy to get a ton of playing time, but I do think that Wilson and Mostert still have the edge because they know the offense better than Cook would or better than a rookie would.
Very interesting. All right, we're going to keep a close eye on this Dalvin Cook situation. Coming up next, we're going to play a little game of The Line is Right with some wide receiver totals. Remember to hit that like button, subscribe to our YouTube channel, and comment on this video. Before we take this break, Saturday on CBS, one of the most celebrated soccer tournaments in the world is down to 2 clubs. Manchester City meets Inter in the UEFA Champions League final. Our world-class team will be on the pitch with live coverage beginning on Saturday at 1:30 Eastern on CBS. You're watching Pick 6. We'll be back.
They say patience is a virtue. But for some things, we can't wait.
All right, welcome back to the Pick 6 podcast here with Brinson and Breech. And we're going to play a little game of The Line is Right. In order to get into the mode here, I would like to show a picture of Brinson looking like Bob Barker with a skinny mic to get us into the groove here. So Breech and Brinson will have to guess the season prop line for various wide receivers in the NFL that coincide with some top storylines out of minicamp. Whoever is closest to the actual number gets a point. Whoever has the most points at the end gets a Pick 6 item from the CBS Sports Store in the Paramount shop. And if you guys want to check that out, it's paramountshop.com/collections/pick-6. There he is. Could have been Bob Barker, but he's here with us.
As a fan, you see the St. Jude pin there. That's the fantasy football telethon. My hair is longer, but it hasn't changed. And since I look like a thumb, I grew a beard.
I will bring to attention. Brady didn't like this outfit. He thought you were wearing 2 different whites. Remember the cream? And you said it was just the photo. You weren't wearing a cream blazer with a white shirt.
It's just a white dinner.
But that's how it looks.
Yeah, Brady can get punted.
Brady can get punted. All right. So first storyline out of minicamp is about Michael Thomas, Saints veteran. Michael Thomas says he'll be ready to go full speed on the first day of training camp, just like the old days and what we're used to. How do you guys feel about that? 2019, I believe he was the leader, right? And receiving yards, 1,725. Then the injury bug hit him and all of the drama about not getting surgeries when he should in the offseason. A healthy Thomas, obviously huge for the wide receiver room that already includes Traquan Smith and Chris Olave. Olave led the team last season, 72 catches, 1,042 receiving yards, and 4 touchdowns. So there's no line right now for Michael Thomas. So we're going to play The Line is Right with Chris Olave. You guys need to guess what his prop line is for the season, receiving yards, and whoever is closest wins.
So I'll go first because
I'm going to Price is Right you. You're done.
Age and beauty before whatever Breech is. Age and beauty before cats.
Age before beauty is what they say.
Yeah, I know. So I think this is a really interesting debate about how the offense looks with Michael Thomas and Chris Olave. Obviously, Olave, the first round pick last year, had a great season. Finished with what do you have? Just under 1,200 yards, I think. Excellent rookie year. Could have easily been the rookie of the year. Garrett Wilson had a better year. And I think Michael Thomas has been like a fantasy football favorite for the last 2 years where people draft I got Michael Thomas late. He's going to sit on my bench. He's going to be a stud in 6 weeks. And then he doesn't do anything. Yeah. And, we thought with Sean Payton out that it might, we might see Michael Thomas come back and be his normal old self. It is tough to really project what we think he's going to be in this offense. And I think people are sleeping on the fact that, Michael Thomas now, he'll be 20. He just turned 30 in March. So, he's up there, up there a little bit. He's not, Olave is the future for this team. And this is not a team, even with Pete Carmichael as the offensive coordinator, that's going to chunk the ball, and Derek Carr, they're not going to chunk the ball around a bunch. I mean, Dennis Allen is a defensive coach. I think that this is probably going to be a little more conservative of an offense. And what we'll probably see is one of these guys, either Michael Thomas returns to form and becomes the alpha again, or Chris Olave, ends up being just takes over and is like still the number one, and they funnel targets his way. And you would think that they would focus on that because he's the younger guy. Having said all that, my guess is I'm giving them the exact same numbers. I know Michael Thomas, we're not guessing, but I'm just telling you that I'm giving the same numbers. 1150.5 receiving yards this season for Chris Olave and Michael Thomas.
That's the over-under?
That's the over-under I'm setting.
Woo! All right, Brinson, here is so
I'm thinking that Michael Thomas is going to get some playing time. If he's like cut or he's hurt, then obviously Olave's number would go up.
I liked the fact that you explained that all very well, laid out your whole entire reasoning for your guess on Olave. Here's my thing on Michael Thomas. The guy has not been healthy for 3 years. This isn't like he's missed 1 year and he's trying to make his way back. He has played in 10 games over 3 seasons. I don't think that he is going to be the superstar that he was in 2019. As Katie mentioned, he led the NFL in receptions. He led the NFL in receiving yards. That was in a high-powered passing attack.
Year.
Well, but again, Brinson, as you mentioned, it doesn't feel like the Saints are going to be throwing it as often as they did with Drew Brees. So it's going to be hard to put up those types of numbers. Then you look at Olave, last season finished with 1,042 receiving yards. And so I just feel like the over-under will be somewhere near that because on one hand, you think, he's going to go over that. He was a rookie. He'll look better. But maybe he goes a little bit lower than that because the Michael Thomas factor, and you now have other guys to throw the ball to. So I am going to set mine lower than Brinson's. Brinson, when you said 1150.5?
1150 and a half.
I am not going to Price is Right you and go with 1151.5. I am going to go under and say 1,025.
1,025. All right. Well,
what's the number? Let's reveal.
The number is 1,050 and a half. So for this game, Breech is the winner. But actually, I believe that Dom would be the winner because he's 1,065.
What did you say, Breech?
No, if you go over, you lose. Price is Right rules, you're out.
Yeah, that's right. If you go over, you lose.
Right,
yeah.
You lose.
All right.
You said 1,025?
1,020. I was going to say 1,000, which
It's
if it makes you feel any better.
1,050.
Change it at the last second.
I mean, so you would like the over on that then, right, Breech?
Yeah, well, I mean, that's kind of what I said is that I feel like I thought it would be around the number he got last year because you could argue either way, whether he goes higher or lower, just because the Michael Thomas factor, you don't know. So, yeah, I would probably take the over. I think he'll finish with like 1,200, so I think, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think the over is probably the play here if you want to fade Michael Thomas. Like Michael Thomas isn't going to be any healthier than he is right now, and if he can't get back or Derek Carr really gets his bond with Olave, it wouldn't be shocking at all if this number went way over.
And that's the thing too, is that Olave only played in 15 games last year. So he didn't play 2 games. So that helps his number. And then more consistent quarterback play where he played with, Andy Dalton, obviously, but Jameis Winston was his quarterback for 3 games. So you're kind of building, you have an offense that Jameis Winston's trying to run, that Andy Dalton's trying to run. Now you're more uniform because you know that Derek Carr is your starting quarterback going into the season.
All right. A quick question though. Do you guys think that Michael Thomas, we can't, there's no line for him yet. So we obviously can't play the game with him, but if you had to guess on a Michael Thomas line, what would it be? And do you think that he will actually be back to his old self this year?
I'll say 975.5. I said 1150.
So under Olave. So
yeah, I think he would be listed under Olave because Olave played so well as a rookie, quarterback upgrade, same offense, and just not trusting Michael Thomas, I would guess.
And I'd go down to like 900 because it's all based on, do you think you're basically betting, can he stay healthy? And he has not been able to stay healthy for 3 years.
Yeah.
All right. So 1 point Breech on his way to a pick 6 item from the Paramount shop, which you can get as well. Our next contestant.
Is he really going to get a pick 6 item? Have you
Yes.
spoken with
not
Legal?
listen to her start the game off?
Yes.
Have you spoken with Legal about this?
Yes.
Okay,
I have.
good. How was that call?
Me and legal are very tight.
Who's your contact? Who's your contact in legal?
Brinson wants to know. He's asking for a friend.
Don't worry. Brinson, just worry about winning. All right, just worry about winning and maybe getting something from the pick.
Brinson is tight with everyone in the legal department because of all the things
all
he's
the legal issues. That's right. That's right.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Well, look, I have a better reputation with them. Maybe. All right. Moving
I
on.
have my own sub department in legal.
that I actually can understand. Okay, Tyreek Hill is not participating fully in the current Miami Dolphins minicamp because he's apparently dealing with some minor injury issue, according to Mike McDaniel, adding that Tyreek is probably the least I'm worried about being physically able to perform his tasks. Before we get into this, what do you think of this minor injury with him? Is it actually something to worry about? Because Tyreek is actually someone who plays in almost every single game. He appeared 108 of a possible 114 games the first 7 years of his career, including all 17 last season in Miami. So if he's potentially not going to play a full season, I would think that's a pretty big deal.
It's pretty crazy that Tyreek Hill has never led the league in any receiving yardage stat, except for he's led the league in yards per touch twice, but he's just never, he's been an explosive, dynamic wide receiver his entire career. His one time he had 860 yards when he played 12 games 1 year in Kansas City, and then his rookie season 593 when he started just one. I mean, he has been, he averages 77.2 yards per game. And if you take out that rookie season, you're talking about a guy that averages 84.2 yards per game. It's just weird that he's never led the league in anything. I was thinking it's pretty crazy that depending on what you want to go by, and money is a fine money and production. So money and selfish production is fine qualifies as success. Like the Tyreek Hill trade was a win-win for the Chiefs and Tyreek Hill. He got more money and he had the best year of his career, which is wild to think that he did that. Obviously played the 17 games, but had the most receiving yards of his career, had 7 touchdowns. And it's just crazy to think that even though the Chiefs won the Super Bowl without him and he still managed to, have this great season. I'm not worried at all about him. I think he'll be back in the field. There was one point where he was injured during the season. He just rolled right out there and had a huge game. They'll take it easy on him in the preseason. They're not going to ramp him up. They know what he can do. Is he 29? Just turned 29 in March. I can't see Breech. Him. I don't foresee this being a problem at all. He got paid and he showed up in a big way. In his season in Miami after leaving Patrick Mahomes.
Do you want me to guess first too?
I was just
we've got to flip.
I was putting it out there. So if there's nothing to say here, then yes. We will guess now on what the line is for Tyreek Hill's regular season receiving yards. Breech, you go first.
Well, let the host handle the host.
Well, to his health. I was going to chime in. I just wasn't sure if I was supposed to guess after that. But to his health, to that point, it's crazy. The guy who plays at such a high speed has been available for so many games. I mean, when you are that fast, that's just asking for a hamstring injury or a calf injury, and he has suffered these minor injuries, but they don't keep him out of games. He is always available. So I do feel like if there's a receiver you want to bet on with an over, it's probably him because he's always out there. And it was crazy, as Brinson mentioned, that he was able – the Dolphins gave up so much to get him, and he came out and put up 1,700 yards. That's insane for him to do that in this offense, especially when you consider how much the Dolphins also like to run the ball. So when you look at what he did over his past 3 seasons, 2 of them in Kansas City – 2020, 2021, he finished between 12 and 1,300 yards. Last season, he finished 1,700 yards. So if you're an odds maker, this does feel like a difficult one to make because you can't make it, 1,600 because that's just a crazy number. And I think everyone would bet the under, but you can't make it 1,200 because it's Tyreek Hill and he's gone over that number, 5 of the past 6 seasons or 4 of the past 5 seasons. So I think this is a tough number to put down. I'm going to go with 1,400 even as the over-under.
Okay.
Okay, so this is where...
Well, if Brinson guesses 1,401, that is a cop-out. I'm just putting it on the record now.
I'll call the cops, buddy.
All legal. He knows everybody there.
You better get legal. You better get the Brinson legal department on it. So... I actually had as my number, I had a much higher number, but I'm not going to register as my official guess because this is, and David Tays of the podcast know my infatuation with game theory. And what's better than game theory than Price is Right. So my number was, this is not my official guess, but my number that I had was 1495.5.
This is the Brinson model number.
This is the Brinson model. Yeah. I mean, like, I think, and I'm a little hesitant for it because you have the Tua situation. I mean, that's why we're sort of down on the Dolphins. Everybody likes the Dolphins, but the Tua thing is hanging out there. You know, if he gets hurt, banged up, like how will Tyreek perform? However, because Breech just basically gave me 95 free yards, I am in fact going to guess 1401.5, 1 yard more than Breech. You, my friend, are the first victim of the Price is Righting on The Line is Right, or whatever we're calling it.
It's ridiculous. I should quit out of principle right now.
You literally said right before you started, you go, I'm going to Price is Right you and go one more than you.
You guys are both wrong and don't get any points since you went over the line here.
Oh, no.
It is way down from
Wow.
that. 1250.5. All right, so let's talk about how shocked you guys are. This clearly has to do with the health of Tua and that kind of uncertainty. Are you guys hammering this over since y'all were in the 1400s?
Well, I mean, I would just say that if you taking out his rookie season, and I don't feel like doing the math on including the 2019, because he missed 4 games. He missed 4 games. He can miss 4 games. It's not insane. But the point being is, like, take out his rookie season because he just wasn't starting. Like, rookies don't really do that in Andy Reid's system. And you look at the rest of it, his other 6 years, 5 in Kansas City, of course, one without Patrick Mahomes, 2017, and then one in Miami, of course, last year. And he averages 1,291.2 yards per year, and that's with 16 game seasons. Now, he only. He's been durable. Like, he played 15. I think he sat out the final game in 2020, maybe. He played all 17 games in 2021 and 2022, played 26. I mean, he's been extremely durable. And I don't know, man. I mean, I wouldn't want to take an over this high because it's a big over, but like, he averages, that feels low to me.
I'm just going to throw in the fact that Tua missed multiple games last year, as you mentioned. Skylar Thompson was his quarterback for 2 games. Teddy Bridgewater was his quarterback for 2 games, and he still put up over 1,700 yards. So I don't even think it matters who the quarterback is. I cannot see unless he gets injured, which maybe that's the bet here, but I am taking the over here. I am pounding the over.
Now, do you think this obviously we're talking about Dalvin Cook, right? Maybe coming to Miami. You've got a pretty good room of running backs. Is it that McDaniels maybe is going to run the ball more to protect Tua this next season?
I don't know if it's that. I think it's probably something along the lines of the books look at last year as sort of an outlier in terms of the production. And then, again, like, you take his average, I don't know how Caesars got to this number, but they took his average for his career. 1291 is his average. They just sort of dropped it down 40 yards, and maybe that's the Tua factor. Like, I mean, 1,700 yards is almost 300 yards more than what he never topped 1,500 yards in his career before. So, like, 1,700 yards is a monster year. It's actually insane that he was. Yeah, I mean, he got MVP votes. He was 9th in the MVP voting, but it's only 4th in the Offensive Player of the Year award, which is crazy.
Super crazy. All right, we have more of this game when we come back, but we are going to take a quick break here. Watch Pick Six, and we'll see you in a sec.
Absolutely magisterial here.
Welcome back to Pick Six Podcast here with Brinson and Breech, and we're playing The Line is Right, a version of The Price is Right. So far, it's Breech because I can't give either of you a point on the last one because you both went over, right? Per Price is Right rules. Okay, so the next person we are going to talk about
But for the record, I was closer. Just
Yes, I'll make sure legal knows when we get you something
you.
from the
Thank
Pick Six store. Okay, all right. Treylon Burks received very high praise during OTAs from the Titans after enduring a poor offseason in 2022. The wide receiver coach Rob Moore said he's been a different player, while Tanahan praised his work ethic and drives. Last year, he had 33 receptions, 444 receiving yards, 13.5 yards per catch. Now, we do know that DeAndre Hopkins is set to make his very first free agent visit to the Titans, which makes things a little bit interesting for Treylon Burks. So before we get into the line is right, what do we think of D-Hop going to the Titans?
Brinson.
Wow,
You want me to
no, we don't care.
I
about
have a
you.
lot of thoughts on this.
Okay, great. You go first. Brinson.
Oh, Brinson's muted.
Mute.
I was wondering why. If you're wondering why there was an awkward silence, it's because
Sorry.
Brinson,
like,
I saw his
wow.
mouth moving. I could tell he was trying to talk.
I was like, why won't you? I was like, you asked me, why don't you let me say it? I think that I think if DeAndre Hopkins goes to the Titans, Brady mentioned it on Tuesday's show. It's like a lot of times when a player like Hopkins or any player really, you go to the team, like if you're a star player, you go to the team, you think like, now we're a Super Bowl team. To me, it feels like Julio Jones 2.0, where they bring in a superstar, big name wide receiver whose production has dipped in recent years. Hopkins suspended. Look, I mean, I don't get why we're discounting the 6-game suspension for PEDs. Like, there's a reason why you take PEDs is because your performance is slipping. And it just is. I mean, and there could be other reasons why, but the point remains. Like, the Tennessee is not a team that chunks it around. And AJ Brown had big years there. I think that we would see. I think would be closer to Julio Jones and AJ Brown if DeAndre Hopkins went to Tennessee. Personally,
I don't know. I actually think the Titans make the most sense. If you read the newsletter, I thought they were the dark horse landing spot that he would end up in, and then we get news that he's visiting Nashville on Sunday. Call me, DeAndre. We can hang out. Give me the lowdown. But here's the reason: is that we would take down Broadway. Julio Jones was older. He was 32. The season before he went to Tennessee, I think he had about 700 yards, which is what DeAndre Hopkins had last season. But DeAndre Hopkins was injured. So if you think DeAndre Hopkins can stay healthy, I think he makes sense. So that's the risk there is, do you think he can stay healthy? And the reason I think it makes sense for the Titans taking this risk is because, look, you have arguably the least talented receiving room in the NFL, not just in your division, but probably in the NFL. If you add DeAndre Hopkins there and he just plays average DeAndre Hopkins football, it doesn't have to be great. That's an upgrade to your receiving room. And if you're the Titans, look, are you a player away from winning the Super Bowl? No, you are not. Are you a player away from winning the AFC South? Possibly. I mean, you put in that offense, DeAndre Hopkins playing slightly above average football, Derrick Henry, Treylon Burks, I think all of a sudden it becomes an offense that can at least compete for an AFC South title.
Sure.
All right. That leads us to the line is right for Treylon Burks. Now, he had 444 receiving yards last year. He is poised for a better season. Brinson, what's the line?
I'm not like insanely high on Treylon Burks. And I mean, I think he's a good player. Don't think he's a great player. I think this offense is going to restrict what he does. If this line number definitely craters a little bit, if DeAndre Hopkins signs with the Titans, remains to be seen. I will say, as of right now, 849 and a half.
849 and a half?
Yeah.
849 and a half. Okay.
When I look at Burks, he had.
So in other words, that you love that number, Breech, and you're totally flummoxed. You're trying to filibuster to figure it out what you're going to
well, here's the deal. Look, he finished last season with 444 yards, but only played in 11 games. So if he had played in 17 games.
Are you looking to possibly extrapolate is the word you were looking for?
If you extrapolate that through 17 games, then it's 686 yards. So, he's going to have one more year in the offense. And so I do think the potential there is to put up better numbers. But I am not going to price is right, Brinson. I'm going to go much lower.
I go too high for you to prices right me. It's like I'm losing, so I don't get prices right.
With my guess, am going to go with 600.
If it's 625.5, I'm calling legal on you.
All right, it is 825 and a half.
Oh,
Even though Brinson is closer, he loses. And Breech gets
Breech is 200 off.
You got prices righted.
Yeah, you just got prices righted.
We didn't discuss the Price is Right factor when we called it price. It's the I don't know. I think you should be able to go
rule was made
over.
clear before we started, Brinson. I'm sorry.
I think you should be able to go over, but whatever.
Well, we'll
Then it's not
discuss
Price
it
is
we'll
Right.
discuss it with legal when we talk about our item from the Pick Six podcast shop. Okay, over or under for this one, fellas?
It would be an under for me right now. Like I would not take the over on this right now. He could get there if Tannehill plays the whole season and the offensive line is a lot better than, the offensive line kind of gets back to what it was and Derrick Henry's running well. And you got, just like Treylon Burks as a rookie in that offense with Malik Willis and Josh Dobbs playing with him and, getting banged up. And it was going to be really tough to have any kind of good season. So, 1,000 yards isn't out of the question if the Titans are really good. If the Titans are really bad, then, but just don't bet the over on this right now.
And the other part is if they do add DeAndre Hopkins, that's, now Treylon Burks isn't your feature guy and defensive backs, opposing defenses aren't going to be as worried about Burks. And so that might make his life easier. I could see him absolutely having a breakout season. He started to show that shine last year. And if he plays the full season, there's no reason he can't top this number. I think I would probably lean over, but I wouldn't be comfortable.
Losing when I'm 24 yards off the actual total is infuriating.
Brinson, have you ever watched Price is Right, man?
I have.
Learn the game.
Have you ever held the Price is Right microphone, Breech?
I have not.
All right. Well, okay. It's two. Well, Brinson still has time to get back in this game. Okay.
So we'll sweep the rest of these.
Put ourselves
real quick. The leading receiver for the Titans last year, 527. That was the highest number.
Darrington Evans.
Wow.
Robert Woods.
Okay. Stefon Diggs, guys, has been stirring up some drama since the playoff loss to your Bengals when he appeared to have an outburst on the sideline. Then he left the stadium before the coaches could even arrive. Then there was all those cryptic social media posts, his brother trying to get him to Dallas. But Brandon Beane stated today that he expects Stefon Diggs to be at the Bills' mandatory minicamp next week. So what is going on with Diggs, Brinson?
I think it's a little bit more smoke than it is fire. Like the Bills are really good. Yeah, there's a reason why he got traded out of Minnesota too, right? It's probably because he wants money. And maybe he's one of those dudes where you spend a couple of years in a spot and you just sort of get tired of it. And it would be frustrating. Like we saw this. I always reference the Bulls and the Pistons, right? In the 90s. When the Bulls could not beat the Pistons. And what happens is you got to change up the team chemistry a little bit and people get frustrated. Like if you're a Buffalo Bills fan, of course you're frustrated by like the team not winning a Super Bowl ever. If you're a Buffalo Bills player right now, Katie, you've talked about it. Like I'm not backing the Bills anymore. I'm done with the Bills. It's like, how about internally? These guys are like, oh my God, we can't beat the friggin' Chiefs or the Bengals. Like you just feel like, I think there's some frustration there and probably some money. And, because of that, it's maybe not surprising that Diggs is doing this. We see wide receivers do this in the offseason all the time. I'm not that overly concerned about it. They need him. He is so dominant against both man and zone. Unbelievable route runner. And he and Josh Allen are on the same page. I think it would be crazy. He ain't going to Dallas. Come on. He's staying in Buffalo. He'll probably get a little cash. Breech, or I guess Katie.
Well, no, I want Breech's opinion, and then we'll guess.
Sorry. I didn't know where to go there. I kind of just.
Well, everything Brinson just mentioned. Plus, let's not forget he's got to deal with the Madden curse because he's got Josh Allen throwing him the ball. Stefon Diggs needs to go walk under a ladder, buy a black cat, do something to reverse the curse because you don't want to be dealing with this stuff.
By the way, Katie, what's your stat on Madden? The Madden cover you busted out on HQ yesterday?
Yes.
It's like 8 of it's Kate. Katie's like the win totals for the past 15 Madden people. Like producer knows him here. He goes, holy bleep, that's a great stat.
Well, because we were talking about the Madden curse, right? Which I feel like in recent years has been debunked a little bit. There isn't these crazy injuries or down years that have been happening as of late. But when you look at the season win totals for the team of the player selected to be on the cover, since I believe it's like since 2005, of 19, only 8 of those teams have surpassed their win total. So if you look at the Bills, their win total is pretty high this year at 10.5. The under is that plus 125, I believe. I don't know, might take that under based on that trend. But Breech, you bring up a good point about the curse here and Stefon Diggs. With all this in mind, what do you set his receiving yards line at?
So Diggs has been in Buffalo for 3 seasons. He has gone over 1,400 yards in 2 of those 3 seasons. But the thing that frightens me is how far off I was with my Tyreek Hill guess. That feels like I've got to recalibrate the Breech model to account for that. And so if I am making the first guess here, I am going to go with 1175.
1175.
I'm going to put Brinson on the spot. He needs this.
I have to have this.
Get back in the game, Brinson.
So you went a lot lower than I thought you were going to. That puts a crimp in my plan. My the Brinson model projections for Stefon Diggs. You know what? I'm gonna throw the model out the window for this one.
Oh wow. Okay.
And I am going to go with a number near and dear to my heart, and I will say 11.5. So I'm going to go under Breech and hope that I'm going to try to hit this short window. I don't get prices right him. I think that's too high.
Oh my God.
What we've seen from the Vegas. I don't know.
It's 1,200.5. So Breech again. Breech again. Breech.
I'm getting my ass kicked game theory style.
Oh my God.
All right, we've got time.
Tell them to bring me my money.
Okay, one more. You got to get one of them, Brinson. All right, this is the one.
Brinson's in his own head now. He's in his own head. There's no winning.
Although Brinson technically did get one. Oh no, actually, Breech, you got that one right too, but you both went over. Okay, all right. Okay, so
I was 24 off of Treylon Burks and I lost.
Yes,
it happens.
No.
All right, so Amon-Ra St. Brown, PFF recently made the case that he is the best slot receiver in the NFL, one of 17 wide receivers who surpassed 250 targets, 2,000 yards in their first 2 seasons. He had 196 receptions over the last 2 years. He had 100 catch campaign last season, 106, 544 yards after catch. First off, do you agree with Pro Football Focus that St. Brown is the best slot receiver in the NFL, Brinson?
Sure. He's a stud. He's a star. This dude is 23 years old and he's already broken out as a 4th round pick in Detroit with no Matthew Stafford. Like, this guy is the sun god is a freaking star. So yeah, I agree with Pro Football Focus, and I don't always agree with him, but I think that I think you can make the case he's the best slot receiver in the NFL. Although, like, it's also worth noting that most slot, dudes play all over the place these days.
Breech.
Yeah, this is. I mean, he's obviously his rookie year. He tore it up, and it was kind of like, is this guy a fluke? He's playing with the Lions. What's actually going to happen? Can he sustain this kind of success? And also, his rookie year, the Lions were basically trailing in every game. So it was a situation where they were just throwing the ball all the time. And so you start thinking, wow, was that a reason why he put up over 900 yards and was so good? But then that wasn't the case last season. They weren't trailing in every single game. And he was a huge part of their offense, and his numbers have improved upon his rookie year. So I think that kind of, if anybody wasn't sold on him yet, I think 2022, everything Brinson said, and PFF giving him the nod of that he's good now. I think we all know he's good. We all agree on that, and so I will defer to Brinson.
All right, Brinson, you're up first. Then he's the best slot receiver. How many yards?
I gotta be careful. Like, I just my shirt, gonna pick 6 nip slip. That'd be a disaster. I'm gonna go back to the well. I'm gonna say 11.5. Why not?
I feel like this one's tough because
It's tough.
he had 1161 last season. Rookie year had 912. But again, these numbers have just been slightly lower. So I will go way under Brinson. So if it's over 11, Brinson's going to get a point here. I'm going to go with 1,000 even.
It's 1,000 and a half.
Wow.
Breech,
That's shady.
Oh my goodness.
You could have gone with 1 yard.
This is like winning the double the
And you went with
showdown.
a-
They win
Whoa,
double the
whoa, whoa,
showcase.
whoa, whoa. You went with 1,000 even? You can't go with an even number?
Oh, well, actually 1,000 even. Oh yeah, no, it is because it's
That's
1,000 and
under.
a half.
It's
You're right
under.
there. You're
Something.
right there.
There's
If I would have guessed
shenanigans.
1,001, I would have gone over.
Well, look, we may have legal investigate
Legal is going to
breach.
get involved for fraud.
We're going to have to investigate breach based on this line. But so far, he is the winner with 4 correct.
So you could have gone with 1 yard if you were going to go under me, and instead you went half a yard off the actual number.
Well, I decided
Interesting.
after you prices righted me, as we all remember, on the one we both lost, I decided I wasn't going to do it. I was going to man up, and that I wasn't going to use the prices right and just go $1. I went with my actual guess.
All right. Well, again,
Poor
legal
Will.
may or may not get involved.
That's
in
a
this.
low
We're
number
not
for
sure.
Amron St. Brown, by the way. That
Yes.
is low.
Are you going to bet the over?
or under for this? You guys are taking. You're
I
taking.
mean, he
the
had
over.
9-12 as a rookie. He only started 9 games. Like, I would take the over here.
Well, I think a little bit of it is you look at like they re-signed Marvin Jones, so you have a guy who is familiar with the Lions offense. They plan to run the ball a lot, I would think, now with Dave Montgomery and Jahmyr Gibbs. So it is. I guess it's what do you think the Lions' offensive philosophy is going to be? But it does feel a little low. But all the receiver totals were lower than I thought. As I said,
By the way, I looked it up because I want to see what Tyreek Hill was. I'm not obviously not using him. Like, no, can't accuse me of cheating off these numbers because I'm performing poorly in this game. But our projections are already uploaded on the fantasy leagues, and Tyreek Hill projected for 1,270, pretty low. Stefon Diggs 1,187, Amron St. Brown 1,065. Traylon Burks projected for 5 yards.
and real quick, as our buddy Captain Spock mentions in the comments, you have Jameson Williams coming back after his 6-game suspension. So there is going to be a battle to see who's catching those passes from Jared Goff.
Yeah.
So
All right. Well, that is going to wrap up our show today, guys. We hope that you enjoyed The Line is Right. Nobody enjoyed it more than Breech.
I did not.
He is our winner. Make sure that you join us next week for more off-season coverage. Remember to like, comment, and subscribe on the YouTube page. If you're listening to the audio version only, then download, follow, leave a 5-star review, and tell your friends to listen and watch the pod. We'll see you next week.